The best gift I could ever want for my birthday is for you to just die. Those were the words my son said to me on his 45th birthday. I had arrived at his house early with a $200 cake from his favorite bakery, smiling, expecting to see his eyes light up like when he was a little boy. Instead, Michael looked at me with pure annoyance and said those words. My heart shattered right there. But what he didn't know was that he had just awakened something in me that had been dormant for decades. If you're still listening, tell me where you're watching from. Every comment you leave is another mark in this journey. And if this story has touched you, don't forget to hit like so it can reach even further. It was a perfect spring morning in Portland, Oregon. I had woken up at 5 in the morning, too excited to sleep. My only child was turning 45, and I had planned everything perfectly. The cake was chocolate with strawberries, just like when he was little. I even had the candles ready. I knocked on the door of his beautiful house in Lake Oswego, the house I had helped buy with $150,000 from my retirement savings. When Michael opened the door, his face fell. "Oh, it's you," he muttered, not even looking me in the eye. Behind him, I could see Jennifer, his wife, standing with her arms crossed and a slight smile on her face. That smile would haunt me for weeks. "Happy birthday, my love," I said, holding out the cake. "I brought your favorite, just like when you were a kid." Michael sighed deeply, as if my presence was an unbearable burden. "Mom, we need to talk," he said coldly, letting me inside without even a thank you for the cake. We sat down in the living room. I could feel my hands trembling, sensing something terrible was coming. "You know, Mom," Michael began in that cold voice he had developed over the past few years. "I've been thinking a lot about my birthday, about gifts, and about what would truly make me happy." I nodded, trying to stay positive. "Of course, honey. Tell me what you want. A trip. Maybe that new car you mentioned." Michael looked me straight in the eye, and what I saw there chilled me to the bone. It was pure contempt. "The best gift I could ever want for my birthday," he said slowly, savoring each word, "is for you to just die." The world stopped. I literally felt as if someone had ripped my heart from my chest. My son, my own son, the child I had carried for 9 months, had wished for my death as a birthday gift. What did you just say?" I managed to whisper, tears welling up in my eyes. "You heard me," he continued with a coldness that cut through me like knives. "I'm tired of you, Mom. Tired of your constant calls, your unexpected visits, of you always being here bothering me. My life would be so much easier and happier if you would just disappear." I arrived at my small apartment in Pearl District with trembling legs and a broken heart. The $200 cake ended up in the trash. The candles melted, a reflection of the tears that wouldn't stop falling. I sat on my old sofa, the same sofa where I had nursed Michael as a baby, where I had read him stories for years, where I had cried tears of happiness every time he called me Mom. How had I ended up here? How could my own son wish for my death with such coldness? I began to remember everything, absolutely everything I had done for him over the past 45 years. When he was 8 and got leukemia, I worked 3 jobs to pay for his treatment. His father's insurance wasn't enough. I slept on a chair next to his hospital bed for 6 months straight, watching him fight for his life. Then came the day that changed everything. Michael was 35 when my husband Tom died. Tom was a firefighter, a hero who gave his life saving a family from a burning building. The insurance paid $100,000. I didn't hesitate for a second. I gave every penny to Michael and Jennifer for their down payment on the Lake Oswego house. "Your father would want you to have a good start," I told Michael through my tears. After Tom died, I was alone. Friends suggested I start dating again, maybe travel, enjoy my retirement from teaching. But I said no to everything. I need to focus on Michael, I told them. He's all I have left. So I worked extra shifts as a substitute teacher, took on tutoring jobs on weekends, anything to make sure Michael never had to worry about money. When Michael went to college, he changed his major 3 times. First it was engineering, then business, then back to marketing. Each change meant extra semesters, extra tuition, $42,000 in total. I took out a second mortgage on my house to pay for it. Don't worry, honey. I would tell him every time he called crying about his confusion. Your education is the most important thing. Take all the time you need. When he married Jennifer, I organized and paid for the entire wedding. $35,000 for the most elegant ballroom in Portland, the most beautiful flowers, the menu she chose without worrying about the price. I want my son to have everything, I told the wedding planner as I signed check after check, watching my savings disappear. Then came the twins, Emma and Ethan. I became the free babysitter. Every night, Michael and Jennifer wanted date night. Every weekend, they had plans. There I was, not charging a single cent, happy to help my son have the life he had always dreamed of. When Michael lost his job last year, who paid the mortgage for 8 months, me, $16,000 that I took from my pension, money that meant eating canned soup and ramen for weeks just to stretch my income, and when the twins needed braces, another $4,000 that I covered without a second thought. Don't worry, I told them, seeing their distressed faces. That's what grandmothers are for. I got up from the sofa and went to my desk where I kept all the receipts, all the proof of every single penny I had spent on my son and his family. They were boxes and boxes of documents that I had kept, not because of mistrust, but because it made me proud to remember everything I had been able to do for them. I started doing the math, raising Michael from birth until he was on his own, approximately $200,000, college, $42,000, the wedding, $35,000, the down payment on the house, $150,000, the mortgage payments when he was unemployed, $16,000, the twins' braces, $4,000, the birthday and Christmas gifts over all those years, at least $10,000 more. But no, I had chosen to invest in love. I picked up the phone and dialed Michael's number. I needed to hear his voice one more time. I needed to confirm that he had really said those terrible words. "What do you want now?" "Mom." He answered with annoyance after the 5th ring. "Michael, I need to know if you really meant what you said to me today," I asked in a trembling voice. I hung up the phone without saying goodbye. There was no misunderstanding. My son truly believed that my love was a burden, that my presence in his life was a problem he needed to solve. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay awake staring at the ceiling, remembering every beautiful moment we had shared, every hug, every "I love you, Mom" that had come from his lips. Had it all been a lie? At 3 a.m, something changed inside of me. The sadness began to transform into something different, into anger, into indignation, into the clear understanding that I had been used, manipulated, and discarded like a used tissue. My son wanted me to die. Well, maybe it was time to give him exactly what he asked for. The next day, I woke up with a mental clarity I hadn't experienced in years. The sadness had given way to something more powerful: determination. If my son wanted me to disappear from his life, I would, but not in the way he expected. I put on my best clothes and went out with a defined purpose. First stop, the bank where I had a joint account with Michael for his house's emergency expenses. That account I had opened just in case, and in which I had deposited $20,000 for any unforeseen events that might arise. "Good morning, Mrs. Thompson," greeted the manager, Mr. Rodriguez, who had known me for years. "How can I help you today?" I want to close the joint account, I said with a smile that he interpreted as kindness, but which was in reality pure determination. Are you sure that account has a considerable balance? He warned, checking his computer screen. Completely sure. I want to transfer all of that money to my personal account, I replied, signing the papers with a steady hand. Seeing those $20,000 returned to my personal account gave me a satisfaction I hadn't felt in years. It was only the beginning. Next stop, the mortgage loan office. During the past year, when Michael was unemployed, I had co-signed their mortgage. That meant that if they couldn't pay, the responsibility fell on me, but it also meant that I had rights to that property. Mrs. Thompson, the loan officer, Patricia Wilson, greeted me. What brings you here today? I want to review the mortgage contract where I appear as a co-signer, I explained. I need to understand exactly what my rights and obligations are. While she looked for the documents, I remembered the day I signed those papers. Michael had hugged me tight. Thank you, Mom. I don't know what we'd do without you. You're our savior, he had said. Here are the documents, Patricia said, placing a thick folder in front of me. As a co-signer, you are responsible for the payments if the primary holders cannot make them. But you also have the right to reclaim the property if you believe the debtors won't be able to fulfill their obligations. Exactly, I said, examining the papers carefully. What would I have to do if I decided to exercise my rights as co-signer? You would have to demonstrate that there's a risk of default or that there have already been significant delays. In your case, I see that you covered 8 months of payments last year, which is already sufficient evidence that the primary holders lack financial stability. Perfect. Michael had lost his job again last week, information he had given me without thinking about the implications. I left that office with a smile. My dear son had no idea of the storm that was brewing. Third stop, my personal lawyer, Robert Harrison, a 70-year-old man who had been a friend of my late husband, Tom. He knew my entire family situation and had witnessed my sacrifices for Michael for decades. Maggie, he greeted me warmly. What brings you to my office? It's not common to see you here. Bob, I need your help with something very important, I told him, sitting in front of his desk. I want to completely change my will. His eyebrows shot up in surprise. Has something happened with Michael? I told him everything. Every hurtful word, every moment of contempt, the coldness with which Michael had wished for my death on his own birthday. Bob listened to me in silence, his expression becoming more serious with each detail. Maggie, he said finally, I'm so sorry for what you're going through. I never thought Michael was capable of something like that after everything you've done for him. Me neither, I sighed. But I've made my decision. I want to change my will and leave everything to the Dornbecker Children's Hospital, where I volunteer. I also want to set up a trust fund for Emma and Ethan, but Michael and Jennifer can't have access to that money until the twins turn 25. That can be done. Bob nodded, taking notes. Do you also want to change the beneficiaries of your life insurance? Of course. Anything with Michael's name on it, I want to change it. My son wants me to die, but when I do, he's not going to receive a single penny from me. We spent 2 hours reviewing all my legal documents, my $100,000 life insurance policy, my savings, my apartment, my investments. Everything that had once been designated for Michael would now go to charity and the twins' future. There's something else, I said when we were finishing. I want you to prepare all the documents to reclaim the house where Michael lives. As the co-signer of the mortgage, I have rights, and he just lost his job again. Bob's eyes lit up with understanding. Now I see where you're going with all of this. Are you sure you want to go that far? Completely sure, I replied. My son told me his life would be easier if I disappeared. Well, I'm going to disappear. But first, I'm going to make sure he understands exactly what it means to live without me. When I got home, I called a travel agency specializing in retirees that offered packages for living abroad. "Good evening. This is Maggie Thompson," I said when they answered. "I saw your promotion about living in Switzerland. Could you send me complete information?" "Of course, Mrs. Thompson. Switzerland is a very popular destination among our clients. What kind of information do you need?" "Everything," I replied without hesitation. "I want to know everything about how a 72-year-old person can start a new life in Switzerland." That Thursday morning, I received an unexpected visit. It was my neighbor, Dorothy Martinez, a 68-year-old woman who lived in the apartment next door and with whom I had developed a friendship over the past 5 years. "Maggie," she said, sitting in my living room with a cup of coffee, "you look different these days. Has something happened?" Dorothy had been a silent witness to all my sacrifices for Michael. She'd seen me cancel plans with her to rush over whenever my son needed me. She had seen the bags of expensive groceries I would buy to take to Michael while I ate canned soup to save money. I told her everything, every painful detail of what had happened on Michael's birthday, and also all the plans I had been making during the week. "My God, Maggie," Dorothy murmured, her eyes filled with tears. "I can't believe Michael would say something so cruel to you after everything you've done for him. The worst part is that he said it as if it were the most normal thing in the world," I explained, "as if I were a nuisance in his life that needed to be eliminated. And you're really going to Switzerland?" "Yes," I replied firmly. "I've already contacted the agency. I'm planning to leave next Tuesday." Dorothy took my hands kindly. "You know you have my full support, right? What Michael did to you is unforgivable." "There's something else," I said, lowering my voice. "I'm going to need your help with something very important." I explained my complete plan, how I wanted Michael to believe I had truly disappeared. At least for a while, Dorothy would be my accomplice, the person who would find my empty apartment and deliver my farewell letter to Michael. "It's brilliant," Dorothy murmured with a mischievous smile. "That ungrateful child is finally going to understand what it means to lose you." That night, I worked on the most important letter of my life, the letter that Michael would find and that would change everything forever. I wrote and rewrote every word, making sure it conveyed exactly what I wanted to say. 23 pages documenting every penny I had spent on him, every sacrifice I had made, every opportunity I had missed by always being available for his needs. Along with this letter, you will find all the legal documents I have signed this week. I wrote, the change of will, the cancellation of your health insurance that I paid for, the notification that as the co-signer of your mortgage, I have decided to exercise my rights due to your job instability, and the cancellation of all financial benefits you received from me. Your life will be much easier without me, but it will also be much more expensive. I hope it's worth it. On Friday night, as I was packing my most important belongings into 2 suitcases, I received a call from Michael. I didn't answer. He called 3 more times, but I simply let the phone ring. I had nothing left to say to him. Sunday was my last day in Portland. I spent the morning walking through the places that had been important in my life. Roosevelt Elementary School, where I had taught for 40 years. Laurelhurst Park, where I had taken Michael as a child. St. Mary's Cathedral, where I had married Tom. It was my silent farewell to a life I had lived completely for others. At 5 in the morning on Monday, Dorothy knocked on my door as we had arranged. She brought fresh coffee and a knowing smile that filled me with energy. "Ready for your great escape?" she asked, winking. "More than ready," I replied, carrying my 2 suitcases to the door. We called a taxi. As they loaded my suitcases, I took one last look at my apartment. I had lived there for 15 years, but strangely, I didn't feel nostalgic. It was as if I was finally freeing myself from a prison I had built myself. The flight to Zurich was long but peaceful. For the first time in years, no one knew where I was. No one could call me to ask for favors, money, or time. It was an intoxicating feeling of freedom I hadn't experienced since before I became a mother. During the 12-hour journey, I wrote in my journal everything that had happened in the last week, every detail, every emotion, every decision that had led me to that moment. I arrived in Zurich on Tuesday night, local time. A representative from the travel agency was waiting for me at the airport with a sign that had my name on it. She was a kind young woman named Sophie Laurent, who spoke perfect English. "Mrs. Thompson," she greeted me with a genuine smile. "Welcome to Switzerland. I hope you're ready for a new adventure." "More than ready," I replied. And for the first time in weeks, my smile was completely authentic. Sophie took me to a beautiful furnished apartment in the center of Zurich that she had rented for 1 month while I decided if I wanted to stay permanently. It was small but cozy, with windows that overlooked a lovely park and a partial view of the lake. That night, I slept better than I had in years. There was no phone that could ring, no one who needed anything from me, no responsibilities beyond taking care of myself. On Wednesday morning, I woke up early and went out to explore the city. I had breakfast at a charming cafe by the lake run by a warm Italian woman named Maria Rossi. I bought fresh flowers for my temporary apartment. And for the first time in decades, I spent money on something completely unnecessary. A beautiful silk scarf that cost $100. I bought it simply because I liked it, without worrying about the price or whether that money could be better invested in Michael's needs. As I walked through the streets of Zurich, I mentally calculated how much money I had spent on Michael in just the last 5 years, between the mortgage payments when he was unemployed, the twins' braces, the constant gifts, the gas to drive to their house to babysit, the groceries I always brought when I visited. It had been at least $50,000. $50,000 I could have used to travel the world, to live comfortably, to fulfill the dreams I had postponed for decades. Instead, I had given it to a son who considered my love a burden and my presence a nuisance. At 2 in the afternoon Zurich time, I calculated that it would be 8 in the morning in Portland. Dorothy would be preparing to go to Michael's house to deliver the letter that would change everything. I sat on a bench by the lake and waited. I knew that in a few hours, my phone would start ringing desperately. Michael would finally understand what it meant to truly lose me. At 5 in the afternoon, my phone started to vibrate. It was Michael. I let it ring until it stopped. Immediately, it rang again. Again. Michael. This time, I answered. "Mom!" he screamed, his voice cracking. "Where are you? Dorothy came to the house with a letter from you. She said you've disappeared. What's going on?" "Hello, Michael," I replied calmly, enjoying the Swiss lake as I spoke. "Did you read the letter yet?" "Yes, I read it." "Are you crazy? How could you do this to us? Where are you?" "I'm exactly where I need to be," I replied. "Far away from you, just as you wanted." "But I didn't want this. I didn't want you to actually leave. I was just angry. I didn't mean it." There it was. Michael's typical tactic, minimizing the harm he had caused, making me feel guilty for reacting to his cruelty. "You didn't mean it when you told me that your greatest birthday wish was for me to die?" I asked, because you sounded pretty convincing. I was just frustrated. Jennifer lost her job again. The kids are giving us problems at school. I'm so stressed. I shouldn't have taken it out on you. You're right. You shouldn't have. But it's done, and words can't be taken back. But Mom, please come back. We need you. I need you. How interesting. Now he needed me. Now that he had read the letter about all the financial benefits he had lost, now that he knew he could lose his house, Now that he understood, he would have to pay for his own health insurance and find a babysitter for the twins. "Do you need me, or do you need my money?" I asked him directly. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. "I need you," he finally murmured, but his voice didn't sound convincing. "Michael, for 45 years, I lived for you. I sacrificed my dreams, my money, my time, my opportunities. And when I finally needed to feel that you loved me and valued me, you told me you'd rather I was dead. Those words broke my heart in a way I will never be able to fix. I'm sorry, Mom. I'm so sorry." Sorry is not enough. Michael, the damage is done. And you know what? Maybe it was the best thing you could have said to me because it finally opened my eyes and made me understand that I've been living my life all wrong. What do you mean? I mean that for the first time in decades, I am living for me and it feels wonderful. I hung up the phone without waiting for a response. It immediately rang again, but this time I turned it off completely. That night, I went out to dinner alone at an elegant restaurant by the lake. I ordered the most expensive dish on the menu, salmon with caviar that cost $80, and I drank an entire bottle of French wine. It had been years since I had given myself that kind of luxury, always thinking that the money could be useful for Michael. The next day, Thursday, I turned on my phone and found 47 missed calls and 23 text messages, all from Michael and Jennifer. The messages evolved from pleas to threats. "Please, Mom, answer. We're so worried." The first one said, "If you don't answer, we're going to call the police." The fifth one threatened, "We already called the police. They said there's nothing they can do because you left a letter explaining your departure." The 10th one admitted, "The bank called us. You canceled the joint account. How are we going to pay for emergencies?" The 15th one revealed, "You're going to ruin us. The mortgage lawyer called us. He says you can take our house." The 20th one said, "It was beautiful to see how the concern for my well-being quickly turned into panic over the financial implications of my absence. I decided to answer just one message. I'm fine. I'm exactly where I need to be. Don't look for me." The response came in less than 5 minutes. "You don't understand what you're doing. You're going to ruin us. The mortgage lawyer called us. He says you can take our house." There it was. The truth. He wasn't worried that I might be suffering or in danger. He was worried because he had finally understood the financial implications of losing me. I replied, "Now you understand what it's worth to have me in your life. Too bad you realized it too late." That afternoon, I had my meeting with the Swiss financial advisor, Klaus Weber, a professional man in his mid-50s who helped me understand all my options for permanent residency in Switzerland. "With your current savings and your American pension," he explained, "you can live comfortably here for the rest of your life. Switzerland has excellent medical care programs for retired foreigners, and the quality of life is exceptional." For the first time in years, I spoke openly about my finances without worrying about saving money for Michael's emergencies. It was liberating to calculate my expenses based solely on my own needs and desires. "You can also invest part of your savings in the Swiss economy," Klaus continued. "The returns are stable and secure. In 5 years, you could double your assets if you invest wisely." On Friday morning, I joined a hiking group for older people. There were 8 women and 4 men, all between 60 and 75 years old, all looking for adventure and new experiences. During the bus ride, I struck up a conversation with a woman named Helga Schmidt, a 71-year-old German who had arrived in Switzerland 2 years earlier. "What brought you here?" she asked me as we admired the landscape from the window. "A son who told me that his greatest birthday wish was for me to die." I answered without filters. I no longer had the energy to sugarcoat the reality. Helga looked at me with wide eyes. Seriously. Completely seriously. After financing his house, practically raising his children, and sacrificing my retirement for his needs, he told me that my presence in his life was an unbearable burden. My goodness, Helga murmured. And what did you do? I disappeared from his life, and here I am. Helga smiled with admiration. You are very brave. It took me 5 years to make the decision to walk away from my toxic family. For the rest of the day, Helga and I shared our stories. She had come to Switzerland after realizing that her adult children only contacted her when they needed money. That's not love, Helga said. That's exploitation. Her words resonated deeply in my heart. 3 weeks after my arrival in Switzerland, I received a call from an international number I didn't recognize. Mrs. Maggie Thompson, a female voice with an American accent, asked, "Yes, this is she. Who's calling?" "My name is Dr. Amanda Foster. I'm a social worker in the Family Services Department in Portland. I'm calling because we've received a complaint about your well-being." My blood ran cold. A complaint? What kind? Your son, Michael Thompson, filed a complaint alleging that you may be suffering from dementia or cognitive decline and that you've made financial and life decisions that put you at risk. According to him, you disappeared suddenly and are living in precarious conditions abroad. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Michael had gone to the extreme of involving social services, inventing a mental illness to invalidate my decisions and force my return. "Dr. Foster," I replied in a firm voice, "I do not suffer from dementia or cognitive decline. I am living in Switzerland by my own choice in a comfortable apartment with excellent medical care and in perfect mental health. My son's allegations are completely false." "I understand your position, Mrs. Thompson, but we need to verify your well-being. Would it be possible to coordinate a medical and psychological evaluation through the American consulate in Switzerland?" "Of course," I replied without hesitation. "I am willing to undergo any evaluation that demonstrates I am in perfect mental health and that my decisions have been made with complete lucidity." 2 days later, I showed up at the American consulate in Zurich for the medical and psychological evaluations. The American doctor who examined me was an older, experienced man named Dr. James Mitchell, who immediately understood the situation. "Mrs. Thompson," he told me after an exhaustive 3-hour evaluation, "not only are you in perfect mental health, but the decisions you have made demonstrate admirable lucidity and courage. Your son is clearly trying to manipulate the legal system to recover financial benefits." That same afternoon, I received a call from Dr. Foster. "Mrs. Thompson, we have received the medical report from the consulate. It is clear that your son's allegations are baseless. We are going to close the case and notify Michael that his complaints were unfounded. Will this be in some kind of record?" I asked. "Yes. It will be documented that he filed a false complaint about a family member's well-being, which could have legal implications if it is repeated." 6 months after my arrival in Switzerland, I received a call from Dorothy. "Maggie, you have to hear this," she said with an excited voice. "Michael lost the house." Despite everything, a part of me still worried about my grandchildren's well-being. "What exactly happened?" I asked. "The bank foreclosed on the mortgage last week. Jennifer couldn't find a stable job. They fell behind on the payments, and since you are the co-signer and are exercising your legal rights, the bank proceeded with the foreclosure. And the kids. Are they fine?" "They moved to a small apartment on the other side of town. Jennifer finally got a job in a factory, earning a lot less than before, but at least it's something stable. Michael had to go back to work, too." It was strange, the mix of feelings I experienced. I didn't feel joy for their suffering, but a deep satisfaction of justice. For the first time in their lives, Michael and Jennifer were experiencing the real consequences of their decisions without having someone to rescue them. That afternoon, I received an unexpected call from my lawyer, Bob. "Maggie, I have some interesting news," he said. "Michael's house has finally been sold by the bank, and since you were the co-signer, you have the right to recover your initial investment of $150,000 plus the accumulated interest. How much is that in total?" $185,000. The bank has already approved the transfer. The money will be in your Swiss account next week. There was also something else. Bob continued. "Your apartment in Portland has finally sold. After commissions and expenses, the net amount is $95,000. In total, I was receiving almost $280,000 in assets that I had given up for lost. With my existing savings and the investments I had made in Switzerland, my total net worth now exceeded $500,000. At 72 years old, I was richer than I had ever been in my life. That night, I celebrated at my favorite restaurant by the lake. I ordered French champagne and toasted the brave woman who had the courage to start over when everything seemed lost. The next day, I decided to do something I had been considering for weeks: write a full book about my experience, not just my story, but a practical guide for older women who were trapped in toxic family relationships. I contacted a publisher that specialized in self-help and personal growth books. The editor, a woman named Rachel Morrison, was immediately interested. "Maggie," she told me during our meeting, "your story touches on a topic that affects millions of women but is rarely talked about openly. Emotional abuse by adult children is an epidemic problem that needs to be exposed." I spent the next 3 months writing When Love Hurts: Freeing Yourself from Family Emotional Abuse After 70. The book documented not only my personal experience, but also practical strategies for recognizing manipulation, setting healthy boundaries, and finding the courage to prioritize one's own well-being. The book was published 8 months later and became a bestseller in several European countries. The letters I received from readers were incredible. Women from all over the world wrote to me, telling me how my story had given them the courage to make radical changes in their own lives. I read your book and finally understood that I am not a bad mother for refusing to continue to finance my 35-year-old son's irresponsibility, wrote Maria from Spain. Your story helped me understand that true love does not require self-destruction. Carmen from Mexico wrote to me, "After reading your book, I sold my big house and moved to a small apartment I can afford without depending on my children's help. For the first time in years, I sleep in peace." Rosa from Argentina shared, "But the letter that moved me the most came 1 year after the book's publication. It was from a young mother named Jessica Martinez. Mrs. Thompson," she wrote, "I'm 32 years old and have a 67-year-old mother who has sacrificed her whole life for me and my siblings. After reading your book, I realized that we are treating her exactly like Michael treated you. Your story opened my eyes and made me understand that I was repeating a toxic pattern that could destroy my relationship with my mother forever. Yesterday, I called my mom and apologized for all the years of taking her granted. I also told her that I want to help her fulfill her own dreams instead of expecting her to always be available for mine. Thank you for helping me understand this before it was too late." That letter made me cry with joy. My pain had served to prevent other families from going through the same destruction. 2 years after my arrival in Switzerland, I received a physical letter in my mailbox. The handwriting on the envelope was familiar, but I couldn't place it immediately. When I opened it, my heart stopped. It was from my grandchildren, Emma and Ethan, now 14 years old. "Dear Grandma Maggie," they wrote in careful handwriting, "Dad told us the truth about why you left. He told us that he said some very ugly things to you, and that's why you decided to start a new life away from us. We want you to know that we miss you so much and that we understand why you left. We also want you to know that we are proud of you for being so brave. When we are older, we would like to visit you in Switzerland if you want us to. We love you, Grandma. The letter was signed by both twins. It included drawings they had made of me living happily in the Swiss mountains. I cried for an hour after reading that letter, not out of sadness, but from the understanding that my decision to preserve my dignity had been the right one. Even if it meant moving away from people I loved, I decided to write them back. My dearest Emma and Ethan, I wrote, your words are the most beautiful gift I have received in years. I love you deeply and always will, no matter the distance. When you are older and can make your own decisions, the doors to my heart and my home will always be open for you. Until then, I want you to know that your grandma is living a full and happy life surrounded by beauty and peace. Keep this love you feel for me, but also learn from this experience. Words have the power to build or destroy, and relationships are based on mutual respect, not on unilateral sacrifice. I love you with all my heart. Today, 3 years after that terrible birthday that changed my life forever. I am sitting on my balcony in Zurich, looking at the mountains as the sun sets behind them. I am 75 years old with assets of more than $600,000. A bestseller book, dear friends from all over the world, and an inner peace I never thought I would experience again. Michael asked me as a birthday gift to disappear from his life. I granted him that wish in the most spectacular way possible. What he never calculated was that by losing me, he not only lost a mother who loved him unconditionally, but he also lost the person who had kept his financial world stable for decades. My disappearance was my gift to him. My new life was my gift to me, and it was worth every tear, every sacrifice, and every moment of pain that brought me here. Because sometimes the only way to save yourself is to have the courage to lose yourself completely in order to be reborn as the person you were always meant to be. Did you like my story, and which city are you listening from? Let's meet in the comments. If you liked the story, you can support me by sending a super thanks so I can keep bringing more stories like this. Thank you so much for your sweet support. I'm looking forward to your comments on the story. There's so much more on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next life story. With love and respect.